The room froze when my father sneered. "They gave it to her for bleeding, not bravery," as the general pinned a Purple Heart to my chest. I'd survived Kandahar with shrapnel lodged in my skull, but nothing cut deeper than that insult. Then, the general pulled out a sealed folder, his voice turning cold. What he revealed about my own family made the ambush look almost merciful. It didn't start with betrayal. It started with responsibility. I was 12 the first time I paid the water bill without telling anyone. Dad had been drinking again, and Mom was too busy cleaning houses to notice the red slip taped to the door. I'd hidden it, rode my bike 5 miles to the drop box, and used the babysitting money I was saving for a pair of cleats I'd never buy. That was the rhythm of my life. Quiet fixes, invisible effort, holding everything together before it cracked wide open. Dad used to say I was the strong one. Built different, he'd mutter when I helped him change the oil or lifted things Leah wouldn't touch. But when I enlisted at 17, that pride turned sour. "Oh, so you think you're better than all of us now," he barked, slamming his coffee mug down. There was no family business, just odd jobs when someone hadn't heard about Dad's temper yet, but he still acted like I'd abandoned a legacy. Mom cried, but not for the reasons I'd hoped. "I just want you to be safe," she said. But 2 weeks later, she asked if I could start sending money home, only until Kyle gets back on his feet. Kyle never found his feet, or if he did, he used them to run from Bill's jobs and accountability. He'd crash on friends' couches, rack up speeding tickets, then call me from some burner number with the same voice he used when we were kids and he broke the window. Harper, don't be mad, but Leah was subtler. She framed every request as if it was for my benefit. "You'd want your niece to have a good Christmas, right? You don't want me to drop out, do you? I paid her tuition more than once." She thanked me once. Over the years, the requests piled up: rent car repairs, emergency vet bills, bail money. I sent what I could even when I was stationed overseas. I'd be crouched in a sand-blasted tent, headaches pulsing behind my eyes, trying to wire money home while listening to mortar rounds in the distance. They never asked how I was, just how fast I could help. I convinced myself it was love, that if I just gave enough, did enough, stayed useful enough, they'd see my worth. But every time I came home, it was the same. Dad scoffing at my uniform, Kyle making soldier jokes, Leah texting under the table during dinner, Mom serving meals like peace offerings while avoiding eye contact. Still, I kept showing up. Christmas, Thanksgivings, birthdays. I came in full dress blues, hoping they'd ask about my deployments, my squad, the lives I'd saved. They never did. There was a photo on the mantle, me age 14, holding a spelling bee trophy. The frame was cracked crooked. No one ever fixed it. I used to think they just hadn't noticed. But after everything that happened, I realized they noticed. They just didn't care. The Purple Heart ceremony was supposed to be the moment it all shifted. I'd imagined it dozens of times in my head, my family rising to their feet. Faces soft with pride, maybe even tears in their eyes. I pictured Dad clapping the loudest, finally seeing the weight I'd carried. That fantasy kept me going on nights when the headaches pulsed too sharp to sleep, and the memories came in jagged flashes. Instead, they showed up late, shuffled to the third row, and looked bored. Dad sat stiff, arms crossed, jaw set, like he was enduring a dental exam. Kyle leaned over now and then to whisper something, smirking like he was in on some private joke. Leah's thumb never left her phone screen. And Mom. She tried. She really did. But the way she clutched her purse to her chest said more than her forced smile ever could. Like she was bracing for impact. The officers around me stood tall, their medals catching the stage lights. They nodded as names were called, as service records were read aloud, each word earned through sacrifice and fire. And still I could feel it, the chill coming off my own bloodline, the one row that wouldn't look me in the eye. Then it was my name. I stepped forward, knees steady, back straight. My uniform fit like second skin, crisp and precise. The applause that followed was warm, respectful. But I barely heard it over the rush of blood in my ears. I found the general's eyes. He gave me a nod. And just as he reached to pin the medal to my chest, the air cracked with my father's voice. They gave it to her for bleeding, not bravery. It hit harder than the blast in Kandahar. There was a ripple of discomfort through the crowd, gasps, a few murmured, Jesus Christ, but my feet didn't move. My body locked. I didn't blink. I just stood there, the ribbon brushing my collarbone, feeling like I was drowning in my own uniform. The general didn't move either. His hand froze mid-motion, pin hovering just shy of fabric. His eyes shifted from me to the third row, to my father. Then something shifted. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a manila folder, sealed, stamped. My stomach turned. This wasn't part of the script. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice dropping an octave, becoming something colder, heavier. "We're here today to honor Sergeant Harper Quinn for her bravery in Kandahar. But there's more to her story, and you deserve to know it." He opened the folder. I could barely breathe. "The ambush that wounded Sergeant Quinn was not random," he continued. "Our investigation has concluded that intelligence about her unit's movement was leaked, compromised from within." The crowd stilled. Even Leah looked up from her phone. The source, he said, gaze-hardening, was her own family. After the ceremony, I didn't go to the reception. I didn't speak to the press. I walked straight past the rows of stunned faces down the hallway and into the parking lot. My hands shook so hard I couldn't get the car key in on the first try. For the next 2 days, I turned my phone off. Not just silent off. No missed calls, no texts, no apologies that weren't really apologies. Then I walked into the investigator's office and said 5 words I never thought I'd say: "I'm ready to give a statement." From that point on, I stopped surviving quietly. I started paying attention. The OSI team didn't hold back. They showed me the breakdown wire transfers from Meridian Research to a shared Quinn family account. The amounts were regular, increasing, and always lined up with sensitive events, unit deployment, patrol rotation, even the week we switched vehicles. I remembered every one of those changes, every one of those risks. And now I knew every time I thought I was keeping my squad safe, someone back home had already sold us out. I didn't confront my family, not yet. Instead, I changed my bank account, canceled the auto payments I'd set up to cover Leah's school fees and Kyle's overdue phone bills. I gave notice on the storage unit I'd been paying for back home that held their furniture temporarily. I moved everything into classified control, my comms, my passwords, my mail, and I started therapy. The first session I said nothing for 10 minutes, just sat there staring at the carpet. Then I asked, "Is it still betrayal if they didn't mean to hurt me?" The therapist looked at me and said, "Did you bleed less because they didn't mean to?" That broke something open. I began documenting everything, conversations I remembered, odd requests they'd made, timelines that now made sense. I pulled old voicemails, screened emails I'd ignored. It was all there, hiding in plain sight. A month passed. Then 2. One morning, Leah texted rent's due. "Can you cover it?" I replied. "No." One word. No explanation. 3 minutes later, Kyle called. Straight to voicemail. Then came the group chat message from Mom Harper. "We don't know what they're saying, but we're still your family." I didn't answer. Instead, I printed that message, highlighted the word "still," and filed it with the rest of my documents. Still your family. Like that title erased the blood on their hands. I wasn't out for revenge. I wasn't planning to ruin them. That was never the goal. What I wanted was silence, freedom, and I took it the only way I knew how. I stopped explaining, stopped rescuing, stopped answering, and in that silence, something unexpected happened. I began to breathe again. The silence didn't go unnoticed. And when my family realized I wasn't coming back, not with money, not with explanations, not with forgiveness, they turned up the volume. Mom started with guilt. Powder blue envelopes arrived weekly, her handwriting careful, her words heavy with selective memory. "We never meant to hurt you, Harper. Families make mistakes. But this silence, it's killing us." She never mentioned the money, or the soldiers, or the general's folder. Only her pain. Kyle tried charm. He showed up outside my building one evening, leaning on the hood of a borrowed car like nothing had happened. "Come on, sis. Let's grab dinner, clear the air." I didn't answer. Just walked past him and into the building. He followed me halfway to the door before saying louder than necessary, "You think you're better than us now. All that uniform did was turn you cold." Leah went nuclear. She posted a long message online, just vague enough to avoid legal trouble, just pointed enough to cause damage. Some people think war gives them the right to abandon their own blood. Just because you wear a medal doesn't mean you didn't destroy your family. The likes rolled in. So did the comments. People I hadn't seen since high school tagging me, asking what was going on. I didn't respond. But I saved screenshots. Then came the community whispering. Old neighbors approached me at the grocery store. Church ladies sent me Facebook messages. "Your mom's been so sad lately. Your dad hasn't left the house in days. They miss you. Why can't you just talk to them?" Because talking had become a weapon. And I wasn't stepping back onto that battlefield. The real breaking point came 3 months after the ceremony. I received a letter from a distant cousin, a woman I barely knew, inviting me to Thanksgiving. She wrote about healing, about how the family needed a leader to bring us together again. The word leader was underlined, as if this was a campaign, as if I'd earned rank just to be used again. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with the letter in one hand and my Purple Heart in the other. One was shiny, official, earned in blood. The other was paper ink and manipulation dressed up as reunion. I burned the letter in the sink. They'd tried everything: guilt, shame, nostalgia, smear tactics, sympathy campaigns. But I'd changed. I didn't flinch when they cried, didn't explain when they lashed out, didn't reply when they said I was the one who broke the family, because I finally understood something that had taken me 29 years and a near-death experience to learn. The family that betrays you doesn't get to demand access just because they feel bad about it later, especially when the regret is mostly about losing what you gave them, not losing you. Silence is powerful, but it's also provocative. When I cut off the money, the explanations, and the late-night rescues, my family didn't retreat. They regrouped. And what followed wasn't apology. It was war. Mom's campaign began with guilt. Letters in soft blue envelopes, her handwriting curling like smoke. "We all make mistakes, Harper. Families forgive. Don't let pride ruin us." But the words never touched the truth. Not one mention of money wired from Meridian Research. Not one acknowledgement of soldiers who never made it home. Just a rewrite. She was the victim of my silence. Kyle chose charm, the same lazy grin he used to talk his way out of speeding tickets. He caught me outside the commissary one Saturday carrying a six-pack like it was a peace treaty. "Let's talk, sis. Clear the air. Start over." I kept walking. He raised his voice as I reached my car. "All those medals just made you cold. You think you're better than us?" I didn't turn around. But inside, the old reflex flared, the one that wanted to explain, to soothe. I strangled it in silence. Leah played a louder game. She took to social media, posting vague accusations dressed up as family drama. Some people forget who loved them before the medals. Some people abandon blood for glory. Her followers filled the comments with sympathy. Old classmates tagged me asking what happened. I said nothing. But I printed every post, slid them into a folder labeled evidence. Silence isn't weakness. It's strategy. The whispers spread offline, too. Neighbors approached me at the grocery store, their eyes wide with concern. "Your poor mom. She says you won't answer her calls." Church acquaintances messaged me late at night. "Your dad is heartbroken. Can't you just forgive him?" They weren't malicious. They were pawns. My family had mastered manipulation, and the community was their new megaphone. Then came the performance. Thanksgiving invitations carefully scripted by cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. The wording was strategic. "We need you, Harper. You're the leader who can heal us." Leader was underlined twice. They didn't want me home. They wanted me useful. I held that letter in one hand and my Purple Heart in the other. One object was heavy, real, earned in dust and fire. The other was paper thin and false, begging me to pretend the past didn't exist. I fed the letter to the sink flames, watched ink curl into smoke. The escalation continued. Kyle tried cornering me outside my apartment. His words slurred, his smile sour. He said I was selfish, that without me the family was falling apart. Leah weaponized Emma showing up with her daughter and saying she misses her aunt. Don't punish a child. Mom left voicemails describing Dad's declining health, her tears dripping between the lines. Every angle tested, every tactic sharpened, but something had changed in me. I no longer flinched when they cried. I no longer explained when they accused. And I no longer mistook persistence for love. The truth was brutal and liberating. They weren't fighting for me. They were fighting for access to my money, my time, my silence. And for the first time in my life, I didn't give it to them. 5 years later, I stood in the same hall where everything had shattered. The polished wood, the echo of footsteps, the hum of quiet anticipation, it all came back like a ghost replay. But this time, I wasn't receiving a medal. I was giving a lecture. Captain Harper Quinn, assigned to train younger officers on operational security. My story had become a case study. I told them what no one ever wants to believe. Sometimes the threat doesn't wear a uniform. Sometimes it shares your last name. The room went still. Faces fresh with youth eyes, wide with disbelief. I remembered being their age, certain blood meant safety. I watched realization ripple through them, and I knew my scars weren't just mine anymore. They were a warning. Afterward, a young sergeant pulled me aside. Her hands trembled slightly as she spoke. "Ma'am, my mom keeps asking for my deployment schedule. Says it's to plan visits, but she wants times, names, unit details. It feels wrong." Her voice cracked on that last word. "Trust your instincts," I told her. "Document everything. Silence buys you time. Time buys you safety." 6 months later, that sergeant's documentation exposed another family-based leak. Foreign operatives again. Same strategy. Same lies dressed up as research. But this time, it stopped before blood was spilled. That night, I sat at my desk staring at the Purple Heart. The metal had once felt poisoned proof of betrayal carved into bronze. Now it carried a different weight, not just survival, but legacy. And then came the knock. I wasn't expecting visitors. Through the peephole, I saw a teenage girl with dark hair and my father's stubborn jaw. Emma, Leah's daughter, 17 now, backpack slung over one shoulder, eyes sharp with purpose. I opened the door but kept the chain latched. "Aunt Harper," she said carefully, "I know I'm not supposed to be here. Mom doesn't know, but I need the truth." Her words cut sharper than any accusation. I studied her the same bloodline, but different fire. "How did you find me, Google?" "Military announcements. I've been following your career since I was old enough to use a computer." She took a breath. "I found old bank statements, deposits from something called Meridian Research. The dates match your deployments. Mom always said you abandoned us, but I don't believe her anymore." My chest tightened. For years, Emma had been the pawn the child leveraged to guilt me back into compliance. And now, here she was seeking answers on her own. "Why does it matter to you?" I asked. "Because I'm about to turn 18. Because I need to know what kind of family I come from before I decide who I want to be." So I told her, not every classified detail, but enough: the ambush, the folder, the money, the betrayal. She sat in silence, face pale, knuckles white on her backpack straps. When I finished, she whispered, "They said you were cold, that you destroyed the family, but you were the one they destroyed." I nodded once. Emma's eyes burned with something fierce. "I don't want to be like them. I want to be better. I want to serve, not for penance for myself. So one day someone can say I did something that mattered." For the first time in years, I felt something other than grief when I looked at family. I felt possibility. "Write to me," I said finally. "I can't promise I'll always answer, but I'll always read." She smiled, a small, shaky thing, but real. And in that moment, I saw the echo I never expected, not a repetition of betrayal, but a chance to break the cycle. The Purple Heart still sits on my desk. For years, it felt like a shackle reminding me not only of Kandahar, but of the people who sold me out to my enemies. Now it's different. It's proof that I survived both kinds of battle, the one fought with bullets and the one fought with blood ties. Cutting my family off wasn't the hardest part. It was rebuilding something in the empty space they left behind. I had to learn that boundaries aren't cruelty, that loyalty without respect isn't love. That survival sometimes means choosing yourself, even when the world calls you selfish. The family I lost has been replaced by one I chose. Brothers and sisters in uniform, friends who know that trust is earned, not inherited. Commanders who see me not as a paycheck or lifeline, but as a soldier and a leader. These people show up not because they have to, but because they want to. That's the difference. Emma's visit gave me hope I hadn't expected, a reminder that cycles can break. That truth once spoken has a way of taking root even in hostile soil. When her first letter arrived, lined paper folded twice, her handwriting steady, I felt something shift inside me. She wasn't asking for money or favors or forgiveness, just telling me she'd gotten into college, that she was working towards something real, something earned. I keep that letter tucked beside the medal. One a symbol of pain, endured the other of possibility ahead. Dad once told me soldiers sign up to die. He was wrong. Soldiers sign up to serve, to protect, to fight for a country, for values for each other. What I didn't realize until much later is that you also have to fight for yourself. I've survived war. I've survived betrayal. And now I live by a simple truth. The strongest families aren't always the ones you're born into. They're the ones you build through trust, through loyalty, through choice. And that choice is mine. Always mine. Have you ever been dismissed or betrayed at the very moment you should have been celebrated? Where do you draw the line between forgiveness and self-protection? Share your story in the comments. I read everyone. And if this story resonated, tap like, so it reaches others who need it. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications for more true stories about boundaries, resilience, and rebuilding after betrayal. You're not alone here.